Hi, I'm Sarah Hobson. I'm Student Engagement Officer at the University of Sussex, and I'm joined today by Hannah Ostwick, one of our 4 student connectors working on this project, and we're presenting to you about the Connector programme at Sussex, specifically a connector project around the theme of internationalisation at home, in which staff and students have been working collaboratively in a really positive way with the ultimate aim of improving the internationalised student experience at Sussex. Program is the main way we incorporate the co-creative practice of working with students in partnership at Sussex. The way it works is that students are recruited into various roles, working on different projects, and these projects all look at improving the student experience in some way. Connectors really contribute their ideas, they attend meetings, they deliver the project on very much an equal basis to staff, and that ethos is woven into every aspect of the Connector programme. So even the recruitment, the induction and training of new connectors is done co-creatively by staff and existing connectors, for example. We felt that internationalisation at home would be an ideal area for a connector project, as it's essential to understand what students actually want from an internationalised experience whilst at university. Questions like, what do they need from an internationalised experience? How important is it to them? And how do they want to engage with initiatives are key questions which we need to understand directly from students themselves. And having those kinds of questions designed and posed by other students encourages, we think, a far more honest response. So connector projects are short-term, they're not designed to be ongoing. So there is a clear timeline in place before the project starts. These are usually 6 to 12 weeks in length, depending on the individual demands of that project. The work is paid. Firstly, this incentivises the students to get involved in the first place, and critically to make space in their already really busy lives, and to commit to the projects and actually see them through. But we also expect students to approach the project professionally, and therefore feel they should be financially recognised for that. For Sussex, what this all means is that we gain that all-important student voice in designing and shaping the student experience. We're not just asking students what they want through feedback and then staff providing what we think students want in response to that. We're actually working alongside them to design and shape their university. And then we really believe that the benefits to the students are numerous as well, but I'm going to let Hannah tell you about that in a moment. So the Connector programme is open to all students at Sussex. However, it does actively aim to recruit students from underrepresented backgrounds, as identified by the Office for Students.
So, what's in it for the students? When speaking between myself and the other members of my team, we determined that there were several different benefits to being both a student connector and then also working on this specific project. So when looking at being a student connector, we've been given the opportunity to improve the student experience for future students and develop and gain new skills surrounding our own personal development, working independently but also collaboratively as a team, which allows us to become more marketable for future employers. Benefits of working on the Internationalisation at Home project itself allowed us to contribute to a wider conversation surrounding internationalisation at home, and allowed the connectors, so our team, from different cultural backgrounds to contribute our ideas towards a larger picture. So the project was broken down into 3 main areas of work. So the first one that we, the connectors, focused on was a series of desk research activities. So we aim to understand how other universities throughout the UK focus their projects or their initiatives of internationalisation at home, to see their practices, best practices, and how we could incorporate that maybe going forward at our university. So the second area of work, which was the main body of what we aim to do, was establishing focus group questions and then running these focus groups to understand students' takes on internationalisation at home and potential maybe blue sky thinking as to what they'd like to see incorporated at university. So the final area of work that we focused on was an evaluation of One World Week here at Sussex. So One World Week in itself is a week-long cultural celebration of the different cultures represented here at the university, which has been a long-standing thing that's been going on for a few years now. and incorporates really well with internationalisation at home and kind of what it stands for. This, unfortunately, we ran out of time and weren't able to do a full evaluation of the project, but that will be spoken about later on. So the project had an initial 6-week timeline, which was extended over to 8 weeks to try and encompass all of the work that we had to do and make time for the 1 more week evaluation. However, we found that even within that 8-week extension, or that 2-week extension, making it 8 weeks long, that there still wasn't enough time to achieve all of our aims, and therefore the project could have benefited with being extended a bit longer. However, when looking at the breakdown of what we did every week, so our 6-hour weeks, which is what we were contracted for as student connectors, were broken down into 1-hour weekly team meetings in which everyone got together to set the agenda for the work that we had to do that week. Every other week we would have 30-minute one-to-one meetings with one of the staff connectors, and this was of huge benefit as it allowed us to speak about our own personal development and maybe share any issues that we were having with the group in a more private setting. And then the rest of the 5 hours of the work were conducted within the team, so either working individually or working amongst ourselves in collaboration to conduct the research that we had to do and then analyse it going forward. And one of the really beneficial things of being able to work in the Connector project was having the flexibility. So it was a highly flexible programme to be a part of, and during certain times of exam seasons or heavy workloads, you were able to communicate that with your team and kind of find that balance between maybe I'll take a bit of time off now just to focus on university work, and that was never a problem.
So in terms of impact, there are various ways this Connector project has been impactful. The first is how it fits into the wider university work on internationalisation at home. So alongside our Connector project, which kicked off in February, our global engagement team had also just started a wider piece of work around creating an internationalisation at home programme at Sussex. This work had a lot of resource behind it, it's taking place over many months, and the finished programme will bring together both curricular and non-curricular activities, whereas the Connector project is specifically looking at non-curricular activity. Our Connector project has fed into the bigger and ongoing piece of work, specifically by sharing the findings which came out of the student focus groups workstream. The staff leads working on that broader piece were really pleased to be able to complement their own student engagement research with the Connector's findings, which provided another way to authentically capture the student voice in the design of this programme. As well as the development of skills and experience for the Connectors, part of the impact for them personally was also knowing that their work was directly contributing to the wider conversations around internationalisation at home at their university. And also that their findings have led us to quickly make certain changes, quick wins if you like, and these are things that they can see. So, for example, lots of feedback from the focus group suggested that students did want to engage with internationalisation at home events. They just didn't know where to find out about them. Focus group participants then had various thoughts on how they wanted to access this information. So we've been able to address some of these, such as getting key events in the cultural calendar, such as One World Week, into online timetables. A really simple, easy, quick win, and one which we wouldn't have known about if it wasn't for the focus groups. One impact of many Connector projects is also that they become starting points for future Connector projects, and I would say that this project definitely fits into that category. Our global engagement colleagues are already developing 2 Connector projects around internationalisation at home, having seen the great work that this project team have done. And I personally will also be working with a new group of Connectors to drill down further into the findings and recommendations which have emerged from this one.
So the programme's also had a great personal impact on myself. So I feel as though I've been able to make both a positive contribution towards the student culture at the University of Sussex, where I study, and the wider conversation of internationalisation at home, partly that being in this conference here. I believe that I've gained confidence in my public speaking and presentation skills. I've also had the ability to develop relationships with some really lovely students and staff that I wouldn't have ordinarily had the opportunity to meet and interact with. And I also feel as though I've established a greater connection and sense of engagement with my university. So when speaking to the other connectors on the programme, they wanted to share that their impact felt as though they'd gained a sense of belongingness within the wider community, or the wider connected community to be specific. They felt as though they made a tangible contribution to the university, allowing, once again, to create a better experience for future students. Interpersonal and team building skills were also a big thing that they mentioned. Exposure of working with people from different backgrounds and nationalities within the same team. And then this opportunity here to present findings at the conference organised by the University of Kent.
So that brings me to discuss some of the challenges and the learning points that emerged from the project. Overall, the project has met the majority of its objectives, and feedback from the staff and student connectors involved has been incredibly positive on the whole. There were a few small challenges which emerged as we went along though, and I thought that these might be helpful for me to share for anyone wanting to work co-creatively with students in this area on a connector style project. So from the very beginning, I would say it's essential to establish what we are actually referring to when we talk about internationalisation at home. We maybe weren't explicit enough when it came to writing the connected role advertisement. So most of the connectors initially understood that internationalisation at home was actually about making international students feel at home, rather than it being about giving all students access to an internationalised experience. It's quite a key difference. So when the project started, I then introduced connectors to some of the key literature around the area, and the research component at the beginning of the project, where connectors were looking at other internationalisation at home examples within the sector, was both about fact finding but also provided them with a better understanding of the subject area. I would also say the duration of the project was really tricky to estimate. We started with a 6-week project plan, as Hannah mentioned, and this quickly became clear that to do a thorough job on this huge area of work, 6 weeks wouldn't really be long enough to make any real impact and to gather the data that we were looking for. With connector agreement, we did extend the project, but it really could have been even longer actually. Therefore, there wasn't time to complete the third strand of the project, again, as Hannah mentioned, the One World Week evaluation, which would have been really nice to do. So perhaps that can be another connector project in the future. Then, in terms of communicating as a staff, student, co-creative team, finding a preferred platform or way for all of us to work together was a little bit tricky. We tried Slack, as it kind of allows you to message one another and to share and work on documents together. But this wasn't hugely popular amongst the connectors, who preferred WhatsApp for communicating amongst themselves. So it sort of ended up being a combination of WhatsApp, Slack and email. But it's good to establish those kinds of communication issues, I would say, at the beginning of the project. Don't underestimate also how long it takes for a change in mindset for students to feel comfortable working in equal partnership with staff. This is not the same relationship students might have with tutors, and offering their ideas, their creativity, their energy on an equal basis with staff, or even critiquing staff's way of doing things, doesn't come naturally for most students. I spent quite a lot of time responding to their questions with, well, what do you think? Or trust your own instincts on this, because they were usually really good instincts. Likewise, for meaningful co-creation, staff have to learn to let go of that position of authority a bit and provide students with the space to find solutions to problems themselves and a space to really shine. Talking of space, a suitable physical space or virtual space for co-creation is really essential. Changing that mindset that I just mentioned is much easier when you meet in spaces where students feel empowered. We've just opened a new student centre at Sussex, which we're really lucky to have, and it has a dedicated co-creational space, and that's ideal for this purpose. And there's a nice photo of the space in this slide. Finally, the impact of the work that student connectors are doing needs to be clearly expressed from the beginning. Some of the feedback we had from student connectors was that this wasn't as evident as it could have been. The work they're doing is really important and meaningful and contributes to a major strategic aim of the university. and their recommendations are being acted on. We just have to, as staff, remember to actually share what we're doing with our students. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. On behalf of Hannah and myself, thank you so much for listening. I've popped my email in the slide at the end here, so if anyone wanted to get in contact with me at a later stage to ask any further questions about the Connector programme at Sussex or this specific Connector project, then I'd be really happy to answer those questions.